Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for watching these powerful testimonies, and I just thank God for what He's doing. This channel is about all types of stories and teachings, but so many different age groups are going to be coming, all different ages of stories and testimonies. And another thing about this channel is that I want this to be a place where people can be as real with their testimony as they want, as vulnerable as they need to be. There is something very powerful about being honest about what you've been through and what God has done in your life. So the story you're about to hear is very raw and real and powerful. It is not for children. I just want to say that, but I'm so excited for all the lives that are going to be touched through this, and I can't wait to hear all the other stories that are going to come. Just thank you for supporting, and if you want to support any further way, if you just will like and comment on the videos, it helps other people get a chance to see the videos. So sit back and enjoy, and see you later.
I knew the cops were looking for me. Like, I knew it, and I was so high out of my mind, and I had gotten around really bad people at this point. And it was like, I had no self-worth. This is all I'm destined for. It's like God started working on my perspective. He's like, you're about to die.
Wow.
You know, he's like, you're 84 pounds soaking wet again. Yeah. I just stayed up that night and I was like, God, if you are real, I need you to prove yourself to me. I said, because I'm going to die. I do not want my parents raising my kid. I was like, I want to raise my kid. He needs his mom. Lord, I know you have more for me than this.
Yeah.
I knew that I was done. I knew that my life was about to change, and I was sick and tired of all the hurt, the pain, the shame, everything that I've gone through. I had this fortress of rage.
Yeah.
Like, each step I would take was like a ball of fire. We had a revival coming up, and it's this small church, and I'm just walking in, and I feel my skin is crawling. All I know is next I'm on the floor. And then I wake up and I'm like throwing up, right? Yeah. And like dry heaving. And so it was like, but all I knew after I came to, like, I felt a freedom that I had never felt before. And He took my ashes and gave me beauty for it.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us. We're here at Pouring Out Podcast. We're just so excited for another powerful and radical testimony of God's transformative power. We're here with my friend Marina, and we're just jumping right into her story. So thank you, Marina, for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Oh, awesome.
And Carly.
Yeah, good to see you. All right. Okay, so yeah, just take us through your story. I've gotten to hear just a little bit of it, but a lot of it will be new for me to hear. And I'm just, feel free to just share anything you'd like to share about what God's done in your life, what your life looked like growing up and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Massachusetts. So I'm a transplant. I've lived in Georgia almost my entire life now. So I lived in Massachusetts from birth up until maybe 6 years old or so. And everywhere I lived with my mom, and we lived in an apartment building with my Nana, her husband, and my aunt.
Okay.
And all my cousins. So it was like we had the bottom floor, they had the second floor, third floor, and then strangers up top. Well, for me, I grew up in a single home for the first 4 years of my life, and my mom got with my stepdad. So, my dad was very an angry man. Yeah. He was very much an angry man. And that's when, the verbal abuse started in my life,
Your real dad or your stepdad?
So my stepdad.
Okay.
So I never met my biological dad.
Okay.
So my mom, she was a dancer. She was putting herself through school, trying to do whatever she could, to provide and take care of us. Well, take care of me at the time. But it led to her being never there,
Yeah.
You know, she was sleeping most days on the couch. Whenever I was home, she was asleep. My Nana took care of me most of my life.
Wow.
You know, and
Her mom.
Yep, her mom.
Okay.
And so about 4 years old is when my entire life changed, right? So my stepdad wound up moving in.
Mm-hmm.
He adopted me. I did not want him to adopt me. I was very upset. I was like, I don't want him to be my dad. You know, me and him had gotten into it a lot when I was growing up. There was one time that he put me outside when it was, I mean, it's in Massachusetts, so
Yeah,
it was snowing
cold.
outside. It was cold. And I was like, please don't put me outside. Please, you know, I'll freeze to death, you know,
Yeah.
type situations when my mom would be at work. And he just had rage,
Wow.
you know. And so I remember there was one night he threw a TV outside, out the window, you know, and just growing up in that kind of environment, you know, it went from temporary because he was there, he was gone, you know, he was staying at his own house, to living in that full time. Well, then, you know, my Nana gets married to her husband. And so he gets married to her. He's got a porn problem, you know, and so like I'm having to spend most of my days with my Nana taking care of me. Well, all that's being played on the TV is porn.
Wow. In front of you.
Yep. And so it didn't matter if I was sleeping in the room, didn't matter, you know, my little wandering eyes when I'm 4 years old is like watching through the door, you know, so I was exposed to porn at a very young age. And so eventually we moved out of that apartment. We moved to a house in somewhere in Georgia. And so
All of you guys.
all of us.
Wow.
So the sexual abuse started when I was 4 years old with my Nana's husband. We moved to Georgia. My Nana and her husband moved back in.
Wow.
So it was like I got away from it, and then I didn't get away from it. And then we moved somewhere else where I thought I had gotten away from it again, but they moved downstairs into the basement.
Wow.
And so it's like every single place we went, there they were, you know? And so it was like constant abuse. My parents, you know, they stayed under the influence of drugs most of the time, whether it was pot or drinking, and locked themselves in their room.
Wow. Was like your Nana like doing that as well?
So my mom and my dad would work, right? So during the day they would work. I would be at daycare or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I came home, you know, I do this in my own life sometimes where I'm like, I'm going to go disassociate from the world for a few minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And so they would go lock themselves in their room. And so, you know, late at night, my Nana's husband would come in my room and get me, you know, or I'd go downstairs and play video games with him because it was like he was the only person that would pay me any attention. Like my parents were very emotionally detached. And so, you know, I would go downstairs and play video games with him because I loved to play video games.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I didn't realize this until I got older. Like I love beef jerky, right? Beef jerky was like just like my kryptonite when I was a kid.
snack,
You know,
huh?
it was like open that bag of beef jerky, you know?
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized what he was doing was grooming me. You know, and was grooming me with beef jerky and video games. And it was just, you know, growing up around him, like, you know, he would always wear these pajama pants, you know, and so, you know, the ones that have like the buttons,
Yes.
the buttons either wouldn't be there or it would just be open, and he would never wear underwear. And so it was like always out, right?
Wow.
So it's like, how do you not realize like, hey, there's something not right here, you know? And so like, I remember growing up around that, and they're always yelling, put it up, you know? But it's like, it got worse, and the molestation got worse. And so, you know, when I was like 6 years old, I got put on Adderall.
Yeah.
And so that started my cycle, right? I'm being sexually abused. So they put me on Adderall. There was no like figuring out why I needed to go on Adderall. And I didn't figure out or find out until I went to a program that 90% of people who are diagnosed with ADHD in childhood have endured some sort of trauma.
Yeah.
And so,
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Because your little brain is like misfiring, like it doesn't know how to cope,
Absolutely.
And
so it was like manifesting like at school, and so someone at school said something and they're like, she's not paying attention, or
honestly, I don't even know. Yeah. But all I remember is being 6 years old, being prescribed 20 milligrams of Adderall.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot. That's a high dose.
You haven't even really developed.
No.
You're so small.
Tiny, couldn't eat. I would stay up. And like I had a problem with like having accidents everywhere. Like I would pee in my room at night because I did not want to leave my room. Oh. Like I didn't feel safe enough to leave my room. And I remember being 6 years old, and I had this white wrought iron bed that had like, the balls with the little flowers on it.
Yes.
Like I had one of those beds, and I would just line up all my stuffed animals at night, like all around me, and I would act out my own funeral. Wow. Like I would go into role play, like crying, oh, she's dead, like just pretending people actually cared about me, Oh, and like I'm not saying my parents didn't care about me, but it was just them being emotionally detached. I didn't have that bond because it was like I was either being called names by my stepdad or whatever. And so just growing up in that environment and then going to school, not fitting in, not having friends because I don't know, like I had weird tendencies, it was like, I don't know if maybe I was like a little puppy, like just show me some love, I just want a friend, but like it just pushed people away, and so.
And you didn't have any siblings?
I had a brother when I was 4.
Okay.
And so there's a 4-year gap.
Okay.
So like I felt like whenever he was born, the little attention I did get completely vanished.
Wow.
Like it went to him. Rightfully so, because he was a baby, but there was no like effort to, have us both like spending time with both of us. Well, that's what my perception was when I was a kid. Yeah. I remember a few things like looking back at pictures, like going outside to play in the sprinklers and stuff like that. Yeah. But it was like, the bad outweighed the good when I was growing up. So it was like,
I mean, especially if you have a memory of, 6 years old, there's no way a child could be thinking about their own funeral. It's just, that alone shows you were experiencing some major depression and stuff.
And, it's just like having to process that and growing up. So, we moved somewhere in Sugar Hill, right?
What brought y'all to Georgia?
So my mom was getting a new job or something.
Okay.
And so we went from Massachusetts, where all our family was. I loved my grandparents. I loved my cousins, to moving to Georgia, where I had absolutely no one.
Wow. So it was just you, your mom, and your brother at first, and then eventually the grandparents came later?
Kind of. So I can't remember the time difference. Yeah. But it felt like it was back to back. I don't know if we all moved up here together. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we did, because the house we moved in had the basement and they moved in. But it was different. Yeah. It was just.
You don't really typically hear about the parents staying and living. American style. In a lot of different cultures, like the families all live together and stuff.
Well, so when my Nana moved in with us, my Nana, she's always been a hard worker her whole life. Like, she's been the breadwinner. The man that she married could not hold a job. Wow. Could not hold a job. Like, he was worthless, Yeah. And so, red flags. Yeah. He was a walking red flag. The Facebook video, the guy running with the flag. Yes. Red flag. Like, that was him,
Oh my gosh.
And
for real.
Like, seriously. But, so then we moved to another house, and in second grade, I'm already I turned into a pyro. And
Really?
so I'm setting things on fire at home, watching the toy guns like ooze, the Barbie dolls. Like, I become very destructive. So much so, like, I even set a fire in my classroom bathroom at school and got suspended for it.
Wow.
But it was like, it gave me a sense of power.
Yeah.
Like a sense of control that I didn't have in my life, you know? Like, I felt like my life was out of control, and it was like, when I was setting things on fire, it was like I was in control. I'm not a pyro now, okay? Yeah. Like, I don't go around doing all this, but it was like, you know, like, I had a season of that. And I remember my mom asked me, she was like, do you want to go to an orphanage? Do you want to be adopted out? And like, I was like, yeah. Thinking to myself, like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember shortly after that, like, the abuse got worse and worse and worse. And so then we finally moved. I don't know what provoked this move, but like, we moved away from them. And so we moved into some apartments, and they wound up moving into the same apartments, but it wasn't in our house. Like, it was across, you know? And they wound up moving back to Massachusetts, but it was like the damage had already been done.
Yeah.
You know?
How old were you when they moved back to Massachusetts?
I think I was like 8.
Wow.
Like 8 or 9. And so
like the most developmental time of your a child's life is like that 3 to 9, 10 years old.
Yeah. And so, like, I had a dog. Her name was Sandy. And, like, she became, like, my emotional support dog, right?
Yeah.
So when we moved into this apartment.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. She saved my life.
Aww.
Like,
what kind of dog was she?
She was a corgi mix.
Corgi mix.
Some kind of corgi
Sorry,
mix.
I just want a visual for little Sandy.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find a picture of her. But, so, like, that was my escape.
Yeah.
Like, I would go walk with her and play with her around the neighborhood every single day.
Yeah.
And so one day, you know, it was after my Nana and her husband had moved that, you know, she's my emotional support dog, my best friend, you know, because I'm still kind of weird. And this, like, maroon Trans Am or something was, like, motioning us to walk across the street. Well, I start walking with Sandy, and it's like they were trying to knock us out. Like, they sped up trying to hit us, and then, like, Sandy, like, pushed me out of the way and got ran over in the process.
Oh my
But it was like,
what?
Going from sexual trauma, going to losing my best friend, you know, to just wanting to numb out.
It's
and
like crazy. They just, what the heck when you're...
I don't know. All I remember is I was, like, screaming and I was crying, and my dad ran out. My neighbor ran out. So we had a neighbor, his name was Sean, who had a black lab right next to us. So we lived right in front of each other. And I just remember them bringing me into Sean's apartment, and I'm, like, sobbing.
Yeah.
And, like, he had a black lab named Abby. And so Abby just, like, came over to me and, like, put her paws on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And, like, gave me a hug.
Yeah,
and I was like,
comforted you.
Dog comforted me in that moment, you know, but it was like,
wow.
So I waited up all night, found out they had to put her to sleep because she would have had to be in a doggy wheelchair. But so from then it was just like
grief,
couldn't explain my feelings, you know, at that age, you don't really know how to process things. And so, you know, I just started to isolate. And then, I had a friend that was over the fence where our little neighborhood was. And so we would climb up this it was like a tree that had fallen on a fence, right?
Uh-huh.
And his name was Jonathan. And I don't know, I just started sitting on the fence, right? Yeah. And so then I became friends with the guy behind it. He was my age. And the first time I ever went to church, they brought me to church. I don't even think
Jonathan's family.
Yeah, I don't even think I told my parents I was leaving.
You were just like, I'm going with you.
I'm just like, I'm going to church. You know?
Had you ever heard about God before this? Mm-mm. No God in your family at all. Yeah.
No. And then when I went with them, it was like a Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
And so we made these little Bible. It wasn't like a Bible, but it was like a little construction paper book, like red, green, black, white, you know?
So
And
cool you can remember this.
Yeah. And it was like, you know, that was my first introduction. You know, I didn't know who they were singing about or any of that in church. I just knew that I felt happy.
Yeah.
You know? And so his family, you know, they kind of let me come over every now and then. I don't think my parents ever were aware of what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, I just would hop the fence, go hang out, come back.
Yeah.
You know, it was like literally you go up the hill, over the fence, and their house was right there.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like I finally felt like I had a place in the world. You know, I had a friend until they moved. You know?
Oh, no.
And then we moved shortly after that. And it was like, you know, I had started developing some friendships at my school. And it was like being ripped away from them.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the first year I'm able to kind of make connections and stuff like that. Like
You're talking about like junior or middle school?
No, I'm still in like fifth grade.
Oh, okay.
Fifth grade.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're going into sixth grade. And so we move. You know, I had my friends come and spend the night one time when we moved into our new house or whatever. And then I was all alone again.
Yeah.
And so my first day of that was fourth grade. So in fifth grade, right, I had my book bag and everything. And I start walking around the teacher's desk and I knock everything off her desk. And so like... You know, it was super embarrassing, right?
Cheeks just get red. You're like, oh my gosh.
I'm like,
great first day.
Oh my gosh, this is the worst. Okay. And so it turned out that some of the girls that, you know, were in my class, we all lived in the same area. And so I had made friends with some girls, which was not normal for me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started hanging out with them every day. But I was always the kid that people's parents didn't want hanging out, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was like, you could tell like the parents were always hesitant around me, not knowing, you know, like kind of the bad influence.
Right.
Like, you don't look like our sweet, innocent daughters, you know, type thing. And so it was like, you know, even when I started to make friends, it was hard because it was like the parents then would come in the way. Yeah. And they were like, I don't want you hanging out with her. So then it was like I was alone again, right?
Yeah.
And so by sixth grade, I start hanging out with the wrong crowd. I am tired of this black sheep syndrome. Yeah. And, you know, I had went to that church and I was like, you know what? I was like, God either gives you a really good hand in life or he gives you a really crappy hand in life. And I felt like trauma, loneliness, and all of that was just the life. It was basically my cross to bear, you know? And so I was like, you know, some people just have perfect lives, you know, and I'm just destined for whatever. And so, you know, when I was in sixth grade, I had already started using meth. I was an IV user.
In sixth grade.
Yeah. I was already drinking in like fifth, smoking pot, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then it just, you know, over here, that Adderall when I was
you were
6 years old, you know,
to want that.
So it was like, once I tried meth, it was like.
Was it another person your age giving you meth?
No, it wasn't my age. So when I lied a lot when I was a kid about like to other people, my age, where I came from, stuff like that, you know. To begin with, I didn't, but it was like, you know, when I was in sixth grade, I was probably hanging out with the eighth graders, ninth graders. So they knew how old I was, you know, because we all rode the bus together. But it was like, I don't know, maybe a 10-minute walk from my house to like the trailers that I used to go hang out with. And so it was like, you know, if they're already using meth, you know, they're offering it to you, all this, all that, you know, and I'm like, okay, you know. And I remember the first time I used meth, I was like, that's it. It's like it took my soul, you know.
Wow.
Like I would have lived to chase that the rest of my life, you know.
It just make it to where those, like, you could just be in the
Numb.
moment, numb.
It's like I didn't feel anything anymore. Like I could hyper focus on what it was that I was doing
Yeah.
and not feel the hurt, feel the pain, feel whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't like euphoric, but it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It took everything away.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it was like something that I chased the rest of like my teen years, and it was like, it was crazy because the whole entire road we lived on, like, it didn't matter if you went this way, this way, this way, this way, like, all of us eventually started doing drugs, so it was like partying at night, sneaking out at night till like 4:00 in the morning, still going to school drunk, and I eventually got labeled as like the bad kid in the neighborhood, because I was giving out alcohol, my parents' alcohol, right? And so that created issues at home because it's like I'm stealing my parents' alcohol and serving it to other people, but it was like, I just wanted to have a good time.
And friends.
I just wanted people to like me, But it was like, it got to the point where, I eventually stopped hanging out with everyone on those streets and I started hanging out with a whole new crowd. And so I'm like, by the time I'm 15, I've already been arrested. I've already been kicked out of school. I've already been in all these toxic relationships, dating the wrong men that are beating the crap out of me. And it's like my life just kept spiraling down, And so by the time I was 15, I was already in Lawrenceville, living homeless on the streets. My mom had told, she was trying to get the courts to get me to like stay home or whatever. They tried putting me on house arrest. I complied, still getting high every day. And then they just couldn't tame me.
Because you didn't want to be there too.
I didn't want to be there. They couldn't tame me. It was like after I was taken off house arrest and I got arrested and kicked out of school, it was like I was off to the races.
So did they like expel you?
They expelled me.
Wow.
In 9th grade.
So you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. So every time I got kicked out of school, it was on my mom's birthday.
Really?
Yeah. She's like, happy birthday to me.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, so it was like just watching the torment, it's like that my mom had to go through the anguish of like, here her daughter is getting kicked out of school again. I remember I was in softball or baseball, whichever one it was at the time. Yeah. And she's like, the only reason you're going to still play sports is because your grandma thinks it's going to be good for you. And I was like, thank you, Grandma. But like, it was so bad. It was just so bad, Mm-hmm. And so when they kicked me out, it was for drugs at school. And
you got caught being high or had drugs. They caught you with drugs.
They didn't catch me with the drugs, but they saw that I was selling them on my cell phone. And so
you're selling them too.
Yeah, because that's how I was buying cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like I had an Adderall prescription and it was like, I just wanted everyone to like me, know? And it's like,
get a little money for your own stuff.
Yeah. And so it was like, it just spiraled. Like I was a straight A student. I could have went so far. Like the teachers just, it didn't make sense, you know? But it's like no one ever sat there to question like, hey, what's going on in your life?
Right.
Like what are you running from,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just like sexual abuse. It was physical abuse from my stepdad, not like in a sexual way, but like he would hit me, and just call me out my name, calling me these names. My mom, like I remember one time she backhanded me in my face with all her rings. Somebody came with a bottle of alcohol that I had just give their kids, but it was like there was never any question like, hey, what's going on in your life, you know? And I think at that point it was like I had just gotten raped. Wow. So we went to Maine on a family vacation, and it was my grandparents, it was my parents, it was I think my aunt and uncle, I'm not sure. But we all went to Maine, and they told me I could go walk to the beach. I'm young,
Yeah.
That doesn't make no sense.
How old do you think you were?
This was probably back in like 7th grade.
Wow,
And
young.
so they were like, yeah, you can walk to the beach. And so I walked, and I'm walking, and this guy like snatches me up and pulls me into the woods, right? And first we're just like walking around, and then he's like snatches me up, and then it's like telling me that he's like, you were real good. We'll have to do it again sometime. And so it was like going from that to now I'm having to find my way home. And like at that point, like, yes, I was molested and all that, but like I felt like that time it was like my virginity.
Did he pull you in the woods during the day or the nighttime?
So it was like dusk time. It was like it was starting to get dark outside.
It's like a horror movie to me. I'm like, this is just so crazy.
It was terrible. And so one, I had no idea where I was.
Yeah.
Right. And then my mom and my dad pull up on me, and all they see is leaves in my hair. And so then my dad's calling me a whore and all this and all that. And I'm just like broken. Like I'm numb at this point from what just happened. And so I go inside and I go back downstairs and I call my friend and I'm just sobbing and tell him what just happened. And like I told him we started school. So I was kicked out in 6th grade as well. Right. So I got kicked out in 6th grade. They let me come back in 7th grade. In 7th grade, I come back and everybody knows what happened.
Oh my gosh.
He done told everyone. So it was like all the people at school were either telling me it was my fault, saying I deserved it, all this. Like, you know how mean middle school kids are?
Yeah.
Like it was terrible. You know, if they weren't picking on me for my acne, they were picking on me for that, you know? And so, like, I became a bully.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the only way I felt like I could survive was becoming a bully, like fighting constantly. But like, so after that happened, you know, I go back and I'm riding the bus. Well, then the high school students, I don't think they even knew what happened, but there was a specific guy on the bus who had a used condom. And he threw a used condom on me on the bus. After I had just been raped. Do I think that he knew I was raped? No. But like
the devil was just using these people.
Man. And it was just like, so that is when my life just, I was like, drink it up. I'm partying.
Full numb.
I really didn't care. And so then, you know, 9th grade is when I got kicked out. But it was like, I was able to stay consistent in school and get good grades, but I think it was really because the Adderall I was on, you know?
Yeah.
Not because, like, I tried or whatever. But then 9th grade is when all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was 15. I was living homeless on the streets. They couldn't contain me. My mom tried, but, I mean, it was like I was already too far gone, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, then I started hanging out with some really bad people. And, like, I was sitting at someone's house, and I'm like, this guy's not much older than me. I think he was, like, 16 or 17. And his mom was using meth with each other. And I'm like, well, this is a cool environment, you know? Right. I'm like,
I like hanging
I'm gonna
here.
Stay here, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but it was like, it was super toxic, you know? And the more that I immersed myself into these people and stuff like that, it was like the darker and the sicker that I saw the world for what it was, you know?
Wow.
And it was just like, at that point, it felt like there was no escaping it.
Yeah.
You know? Even after I got put on house arrest, it's like I did my time. I went straight back to the streets. You know, I kept going in and out of like Summit Ridge and Laurelwood.
What are those?
So Summit Ridge is like, it's kind of like a mental hospital.
Oh, okay.
You know, my parents like would continuously try to get me sober. So when I was 15, they sent me back up to Massachusetts to live with my Nana and her husband. Mind you, the same husband that was sexually abusing me, right? So now I'm 15. I've been away from them for a few years. And it's like I'm back into the lion's den.
I bet you felt like rebellion. You didn't want to be around them.
No.
Like, what did it feel like being around them again?
I was skittish
Yeah.
being around him, you know, but at that point too, it's like I've lived the street life now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I had a little bit of street smarts to me to where I manipulated
Yeah.
the system to get what I wanted. Not saying that I ever put out for him or any of that, but like I would play video games. I would smoke his weed. I would smoke his cigarettes, you know, and it was like, as long as I was smoking weed, everyone thought it was like better than me being on meth, you know?
Right.
And so, but there was one night when I was there, and it was, I think my parents were coming up in a week because it was so close to Thanksgiving. And he asked me, he's like, do you want something from McDonald's? And I was like, yeah. And like I was stoned, right? And so I'm just sleeping on the couch. My Nana's already asleep because she's got to go to work. And he comes back and he's like shaking me, trying to wake me up, you know? And I'm like, I'm not waking myself up. Like I have my eyes peaked and I'm looking. And so like from here to where that camera is, right? He goes over there and he just starts ejaculating into the sink while he's staring at me. And I was like, this is freaking crazy. I got to get out of here.
Wow.
And so the first time I spoke up about anything, I told my Nana, I said, this is what happened last night. And so she called the cops. She accused him. And like he started chasing us with a pair of scissors. Like literally trying to stab me and my Nana with scissors.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I'm like, he goes to jail. He gets arrested. At that point, I'm 15. I don't know how to look people up. You know, we don't have technology like we do today.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I don't know what he got arrested for. And it was like almost like a sigh of relief, right?
Yeah.
But my parents wound up sending me back to Georgia. So I can't remember if I stayed at all, but while they came down, but I just remember they sent me back to Georgia. And so I went back to living on the streets.
Wow.
And so it's like it just got darker and darker.
Why do you
and darker.
I know a lot of people deal with this. It's so horrible how
Yeah.
I mean, I barely meet anyone who hasn't gone through sexual abuse. It's like unfortunately, but I know you just said that was the first time you had said something. Do you feel like, I mean, because a child, it's very hard to explain because people always ask, like, why didn't you say something? What is this and that? Like,
so I didn't ever tell them about the sexual abuse. I just told them about what transpired that night.
Yeah.
Right. And so all I remember is when I came back to Georgia, he got out.
Wow.
So the entirety of this situation, like, I don't think he was ever held accountable for anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was hard for me because it was like I had suppressed it all for so many years, using drugs, filling it with like relationships with men, trying to just stay numb, you know. And it was like that's something I didn't want to let back out. Right. And so
it's easier as a kid to like pretend it's not even real.
Yeah.
Like,
and so when I got back to Georgia, I started hanging around the same people. I went and stayed with a friend that came and picked me up from the airport and stuff like that. Well, a few months later, I meet my son's father, Mike, right? And so it was a whole nother situation. I was kidnapped, all this, whatever. And it was by a friend, right? So I don't know what his plans were, but he had me tied to a chair, all sorts of crazy things. And it was like somebody that I had originally knew in the Lawrenceville group that I used to hang out with. And so I was like, oh, they're a safe person, you know. But
so you're just doing what you kind of normally do, which is like hang out with whoever, and then someone like didn't let you leave or did some crazy stuff.
Right. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, this is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
So the guy's cousin unties me. The guy took my phone and everything, like took the SIM card out of my phone. And I'm like, I have never been in this situation. You know, like I could potentially die in this situation. And so the cousin untied me. He's like, I'm getting you out of here. Because he went to go get drugs or something. And so he came and untied me. And he's like, where can I drop you off? And so I was like, I really didn't know anywhere to go. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know my surroundings. And so we're going down, I think that's 53 over there. And I'm like, I remember that house. I just remember that house, right? And it was like, had no power, had no lights, dope house, whatever. And so I was like, drop me off there. And so he drops me off there. And so I was calling my friend and I was like, please come get me. Please come get me. So he sends Mike. So Mike is
Had you met him before?
No. So Mike picks me up from this house, right?
After you almost just got kidnapped?
Yep.
So you're traumatized
Here I am riding with someone else I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how sick I was. Like, I just
Didn't have any discernment.
didn't have any
That's
discernment.
what I say, because I didn't have any discernment.
I feel like I did have discernment, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I had that uh-oh feeling to get out, I would leave. But it was like, after I was in certain situations, it's like, I'm trapped.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, so when I got with him, it was like, oh, you know, knight in shining armor. Like,
Right.
you just saved me. And he was telling me, he's like, the drive-through person's name was Marina too. This is fate, you know? And I was like, yeah, it is, you know? And I'm like, with my toxic self, I'm like, this is fate,
Yeah.
you know? Knight in shining armor, you know? And he was Satan himself.
Oh my god.
He turned into Satan himself. But it was like, at that point, it wasn't that the drugs had me by the neck. It was him. And so it was like, he was my drug at that point.
And how old were you then?
Know? I was probably like 16 or 17.
17. So young still.
So
yeah.
it was like, came from Massachusetts, got mixed up with that crazy crowd. Then I get mixed up with him. And so I'm with him for maybe 4 or 5 years of my life, right? And it's absolutely toxic, beating the crap out of me every day, just cheating on me left and right, you know, and he was much older. Like, I think he would have been 47 or 48 today. And so, and I'm 32, you know, so it's like,
I can't do math
yeah, I don't know.
that very quickly.
I know it's over 11 years,
Yes,
you know, it was
yeah.
probably like 15-year difference.
Wow. Yeah.
But,
And at first you felt safe and you just needed a place of
Yeah.
safety. And like, you were like, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was so toxic. And like, I thrived in chaos, you know.
Yeah, that's all you knew.
It's all I knew. And so, you know, the abuse eventually got worse and worse and worse. So much so, like, he ran me over with a car. It was a Camaro that was our roommates. And so, took off down the highway in that same car with me on the roof of the Camaro, going down the Buford exit, trying to swing me off the car. And, like, people are honking, holding up their phones, like, we're going to call the cops, you know? And he's like, literally, I was like, this is it. I'm going to die.
Oh my god.
And how I wound up on the Camaro was, you know, all my stuff was in his car. He was trying to leave me to go to another girl. Yeah, I'm crazy. I was psycho, right? So I was like, I'm going to hold on to the roof of the Camaro. Surely he will not take off with me on the roof of the car, right? All my stuff's inside. No. Literally, from the Walmart parking lot in Buford to the highway. And is just trying to sling me off. And I was like, I'm going to
You were
die.
holding on, dude.
I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to die, you know? And finally, he pulled over. And it was like, all I could do was sob. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. God had to have, like, had his hand on me on top of that Camaro. Because it was like, there was nothing to hold on to, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was just like, I allowed that pattern to go on over and over and over. And then I finally, there was, you know, I was getting in trouble. I kept getting arrested in Hall County. And somehow I got put on pretrial diversions.
What's
And
that?
so it's like where they hold you accountable. You know, you have to go meet with them so many times.
Can you say that word again? What'd you say?
Pretrial diversions.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
It's like, I don't know. But so my mom called pretrial and was like, she's pregnant. You need to drug test her, right? And so how I wound up on pretrial diversions was we were staying at the hotel and I was trying to do his laundry so he could go to court the next day. And I was like, I need a laundry key. I need a laundry key. Well, he was like coming down and he would turn into a literal demon. Like, I had never seen a demon talk in my entire life up until this point.
Wow.
It was like he would hiss. Like his voice literally changed. And it was not his voice. And I was like, what is this? You know, like
Yeah.
I was introduced to God, you know, knew very little about him. Then I was like, he dealt me a bad hand, had to deal with that, but never was taught anything about demons, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
You're like facing one, like literally.
like, I'm like, what in the world is going on, you know? And I'm like, I have got to get out of here. Well, that night, he starts smacking my head into the concrete floor. I grabbed the only thing that was next to me, which was a belt, and I tried to hit him off of me, you know, because he was slamming my head into the floor. At this point, I'm pregnant. And so, you know, I'm probably like 2 months pregnant. And the next morning, I had an abortion set up.
Oh, wow.
And
so you knew you were pregnant.
I knew I was pregnant. I thought it was the end of the world. I was like, I can't stop using drugs. I'm like, I'm with this abusive man. Like, he knew I was pregnant. And I was like, if I don't terminate, you know, he's going to take me out and the baby out, right?
Oh, wow.
And so he's hitting my head into the concrete floor of the hotel room. And I pick up a belt and I hit him off of me. But I was so conditioned that I was just like, I don't want him to go to jail.
Yeah.
I don't want him to go to jail. So what do? I put on makeup like I always do, trying to cover up the red spots. And I'm like telling the cops that nothing's happening. It must have been someone else's room, whatever. Well, these cops didn't buy it this time because he told the cops that I had hit him. And so, you know, he had the red marks from the belt where I just hit him. And we had so many things in the hotel room. I knew in this moment, if I told them that he hit me, it wouldn't just be him or me going to prison. Like, we would both be in prison for a very, very, very long time, right?
Yeah.
Because the amounts of drugs that were in that hotel room, you know, it was like, it was detrimental. You know, like I knew enough being on the streets. I was like, I have got to play this smart, you know. And I was like, no, he did not hit me, you know. And so the cops started putting me in handcuffs, and they were like, if you just tell us where the drugs are, we'll take him to jail. We won't take you to jail. And I was like, there's no drugs in there. I said, just take me to jail. And he was like, we know that he was hitting you. Just tell us that he was hitting you. And I was like, he wasn't hitting me. So then he's putting me in the back of the cop car. Mike is walking in, the girl that he would always cheat on me with, walking hand in hand, because during our whole spat, he was on the phone with her, like saying, get here now, come pick me up, you know, all this and all that. And that's when the cops came, you know. And so she pulled up at the same time the cops pulled up. So then he's walking her as I'm sitting into the back of the cop car, you know, and the cop is talking to me in the cop car. He's like, you are really going to let this POS treat you this way? He said, you're going to let him go free after he just hit you? And I was just like, just take me to jail. Yeah. And so that night I got arrested, and, you know, I'm talking to, guess who I call? I call Mike. So I'm calling him in the holding cell, right? Telling him to get me out. The next day I have court, virtual court or whatever. They let me out. I think I stayed in, I don't know, maybe 24 hours at that point. And so, but we had a TPO against each other. We weren't allowed to go around each other. And so he picks me up, takes me back to the hotel room, you know, knowing that he was just with that girl last night. I didn't care. You know, It was like, well, you're with me now, you know? Yeah. And it was like, I had no self-worth. I had no, like, future in my own head and stuff like that. Like, it was like, this is all I'm destined for, is misery, loneliness, and this crap relationship. Yeah. And survival mode, you know? And so that's when I got put on pretrial diversions. It was for battery FVA, which was against him, right? Even though it was self-defense, I was trying to get him off me. But would I say anything about that? No, because it was like I was the fall girl, you know? Yeah. And that That was my identity. I was like, you know, at the time a song came out called Train to Go Shoddy, you know, and I'd be like, I'm TTG, you know, trained to go. And looking like an idiot, you know, like I had no morals, no integrity, no nothing at this point. And so it was like just spiraling downwards, right? And so I go on pre-trial diversions. Mind you, I get arrested. I missed my appointment for the abortion.
I know. I was thinking about that as you
Right?
said that. It's like a
So,
hidden blessing there.
yeah, definitely a hidden blessing. I don't think I would have ever been able to live with myself after that, you know?
Yeah.
Missed the appointment, got out, did go back to using though. So it was like, you know,
Yeah.
it was still not a healthy situation. And so went back to using. I was probably out a couple weeks, and my mom called pre-trial diversions and was like, my daughter is using, she's pregnant, you need to save the baby. Yeah. And go into pre-trial. I'm in there for a battery FVA. There's no reason they should have drug tested me. Well, they drug test me. And then they lock me up, and I stay incarcerated the rest of my pregnancy. And so I was in Hall County until it was like 6 months. Yeah. And then I went back to court, and they weren't letting me out. Like the judge was like, you can rot in here. You don't deserve to be a mom. You don't deserve to live on the streets. Like, you are worthless. Like, completely berated me on the stand. And I had a paid attorney. I was like so sure I was going to get out. And so then I get back to the jail. I'm like sobbing, you know, because it was like that judge just tore me up.
Degrading, yeah.
So degrading. And you know, so I get back, and he's like, you're not getting out, right? So that just kept ringing in my head. Well, an hour after I get back, they say, oh, pack it up. And I'm like, what? They said, pack it up. You're getting released. And I was like, I was in my brain. I was like, I know this is a mistake. Like, yeah. I know this is a mistake. And so they messed up and released me, right? So I already had like the man's unit and GBI and all that looking for me as soon as they released me, like maybe 4 hours later, because they weren't supposed to release me. And so I made the mistake calling my mom saying, hey, I'm out, you know, and she called them and told them, what are you doing? You messed up. You released her. She's free. And so here I am, you know, first maybe day or two I'm not using, right? Well, the third day, I know they're after me. I'm getting paranoid. I'm like, at this point, I can't sleep. And so I'm using meth again, right? The cops keep running in everywhere looking for me. And like, it's like a matter of time before they get me, right? And so I'm still with Mike at this point. He drops me off at a friend's house, and the GBI calls my phone, and they're like, we have Mike in the back of the cop car. We're arresting him unless you turn yourself in. And I was like, okay. I'm like 6-7 months pregnant. I'm really fat. I'm like, I can't run on foot if I need to run from the cops, you know? And then it's back to that way of thinking, you know? The fall girl, you know? And so what do? I turn myself in. I'm like, okay, I'm at this address. Just come pick me up. So they pick me up. They drug test me. I fail. And do they let Mike out? No. They don't let him out because he was caught with things in the car, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like they used him to get me, which, you know, I was fine with, whatever, you know, and it was just like I went, you know, I could breathe again, just being, it's like just having a safe place to put my head, stuff like that, you know. And then it was like just not knowing, you know, like I can't raise this kid. Like I am in no mental capacity to raise a child, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's one night I go into labor and they take me to the hospital. They allow my mom to come, which they usually don't, but they allowed my mom to come. And I'm sitting there, I'm handcuffed, you know. Yeah. And having to breastfeed with a cop in the room. Like, it was weird, you know, but
Yeah.
humbling, degrading, all of the above, you
Yeah.
know. But my mom took my son, and so my mom had temporary guardianship of him, right? And so the judge was trying to push for me to go to a program
Yeah.
after he was born. I went back for maybe a week or two. Like, I went back to jail and I just cried.
Yeah.
Like, you could hear me, you could hear a pin drop. And I was just like groaning and moaning and crying, and like you could hear it, you know, the misery. It was like I was mourning him, you know.
Like having to not be with him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was like, you know, I was just crying, I want my baby, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't care about my baby before, you know.
But once you had him,
But once I had him,
it was real
like
to you.
he was real, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like everything that I had gone through, you know, it was like
You're
I
hitting
had
a
him.
certain breaking point. You're
Right.
like, wow.
And I was like, my life is about to change, you know? And so they let me out. They don't have me go to a program. My mom convinced them not to let me go to a program and to just come home. That was a terrible mistake,
Yeah.
because it was like I still had all the trauma,
Right.
all the pain, all the shame, everything, right? Like, I was sober, but I still had all this baggage,
Yeah.
you know? And it was like having to, one, process, like, okay, I went from being 84 pounds soaking wet to now like over 100 pounds, maybe 140, 150 pounds. Like, I was big when I got out of jail, you know?
Yeah.
So then it was like dealing with the weight being my trigger,
Mm-hmm.
and having a new baby and trying to figure all this out and navigating life sober,
Yeah.
right? It probably lasted 6 weeks, to be honest. And I got a job with someone that I used to hang out with and started doing meth again, you know,
Wow.
and I dropped all the weight, and it was like, I finally got my confidence back, you know,
Wow.
and it was before long, like, I had my son with me everywhere I went, you know, like, I thought as long as I had my son that I was being a good mom.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if I was bringing him to a trap house. Didn't matter if I was riding around with him late at night. As long as I was taking care of him, feeding him, changing his diaper, I was a good mom.
Yeah.
And that's truly how I thought.
Yeah.
But it was like keeping up, living that double life with my parents. Like, they knew, but they didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
It was like they were in such denial that
Yeah.
I was back in addiction. And it was like I stopped coming around, stopped going home, you know, like
Lost the weight.
I lost the weight. I would
Yeah.
just drop Connor off if I needed time away from him, you know, and it was just this never ending cycle.
Wow.
And so, you know, there was one night that I knew the cops were looking for me. Like, I knew it, and I was so high out of my mind, and I had gotten around really, 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 really bad people at this point. And I was just sitting in my room, and I was trying to distance myself just enough, you know, and it was around my birthday, and I'm just sitting there and I'm rocking my son in this like emerald green chair I had in my room, and I'm just like petting him, you know, and I'm like, I start sobbing because it's like I am out of my mind. It's like God started working on my perspective. He's like, you're about to die.
Wow.
You know, he's like, you're 84 pounds soaking wet again. You know, I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't hold down liquids. I couldn't hold down anything. But like, I looked like a board,
Wow.
you know, and it was like, I just could not stop.
And you're around like really dangerous people at this point.
Around really dangerous people, like, had nothing, you know, and it's like, I was bringing my kid around these people, and it's like, they don't care.
Yeah.
They do not care, you know?
Yeah.
And then, it was like, I just stayed up that night, and I was like, God, if you are real, I need you to prove yourself to me. I said, because I'm going to die. I do not want my parents raising my kid. I was like, I want to raise my kid. He needs his mom, you know? And I was like, I know I'm going to die If you're real, prove yourself to me, is what I said. And so the next week, I stayed sober. And I just stayed home. Like, I didn't have any terrible withdrawals, anything like that. But then the cops showed up. And so then I'm being taken downtown, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to jail, you know? And so then nothing happened. And then I went to go take my drug test for probation, because I was on probation and pretrial and all this. And my probation officer knew something was going on because how skinny I was getting, but I was passing all my drug tests.
Yeah.
And so I did everything I could to pass this drug test. The same thing I did for all the other drug tests. And this one, I failed. Like, I failed.
Yeah.
I did everything. But here God is showing up, showing me who he is, right? Because I had just prayed, prove yourself to me.
Wow.
Well, I still take the same repercussions so I could pass that drug test, and I failed it, right? And so I knew when I was going to this drug test, like, I had a sickening feeling in my chest. I was like, I'm going to jail, you know?
You could feel it.
I could feel it. And so I had my mom and my son ride with me to probation, and I got arrested, right? And my mom rips Connor out of my hands, and I'm just sobbing because it's like I'm feeling those same emotions that I felt in the hospital.
Yeah.
Right? And my mom is just like completely disgusted with me. She said, you know, I picked drugs over my kid, and I am going in the back of the cop car, right? So that was in October. And then in December, like, I am writing programs left and right, trying to find anyone that will take me. Didn't have any money on the phone, none of that. And truly felt isolated.
Was that the first time you ever like felt like I actually want to go to a program? Like, I'm ready to change. Like,
yeah. This time I felt sick and tired of being sick and tired. When I was sitting in the holding cell, like, I was just freezing to death, and I was like, I felt so defeated.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm tired of living this life.
Yeah.
Because, like, every time I've been arrested, besides the RYDC, like, it was always in Hall County. So I always got put in the same holding cell. And it was like, I was just sick and tired of sitting in that same old cell over and over and over. And so I'm writing all these programs, waiting on someone to respond. You know, usually probation officers are not, like, in a hurry to get you in a program.
Yeah.
You'll just sit in county for however long. Well, at this point, I start going to a free chapel jail service, right? So someone came in and they were like, do you want to go to church? And I was like, not really. Like, I was so depressed. I just slept.
Yeah.
And slept and slept. And they were like, do you want to get out of your cell? I was like, yeah, I guess I'll go, right? And so I went, and it was a free chapel jail service where this lady Cindy came and this lady Barbara came, and they, you know, back then it was like a CD player type thing. It wasn't a DVD, and you just listened to it, right? And so Cindy started showing up consistently, right? So did Barbara. So even despite everything I had done, they still loved me, you know?
Wow.
They started showing me what godly love looked like, what love without judgment looked like, you know? And so 2 days before Christmas, my probation officer came in and was like, I got you into a program. I said, okay, where is it? You know, and at this point, I'm going to the free chapel jail services. I'm like, God, if you just let me out, I'll go to free chapel and I'll serve you the rest of my life. But, like, God was like, no, you're too crazy. You need help, right?
You need healing.
You need healing.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I think that's what I thought about so much, Marina, when you earlier were talking about, well, I was sober, but all of the stuff, all the trauma was there. And I feel like you're like super carrying a passion for that of like, yes, these programs, or someone could say, well, being sober is a savior, but it's so much deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, wow.
You know, and I had tried going to like AA meetings or NA meetings when I first got out of jail, when I had Connor. And it was like watching, I don't know, like I just didn't click. It did
Yeah.
not click for me. I did not vibe well with it. It was like a bunch of people trying to get clean. Relapse was, normal, stuff like that. Like,
It's just almost like a condition you have to deal with and accept
yeah,
instead of what you started to hear, which was like, wait, there's something great. God has a very different
yeah,
thing to say about this regarding
yeah,
identity. So
yeah.
Cindy and Barbara were coming to church. You get a call that you might be going to a program.
Yeah, so my probation officer came in and she's like, "You're going to a program called New Beginnings." And I was like, I really just wanted to go to Free Chapel, And I was like, okay, whatever, And so I go downstairs and I do my intake call for New Beginnings. And they're like, "Well, what do you have money wise, financial help?" I was like, "I have nothing." And they were like, "Well, what assets do you have?" I was like, I have a car." They were like, "Well, if you give us your car, you can come in." And I was like, okay. I was like, "I will give you my car if you let me come." And in that moment, like looking back, it's like, that's how serious I was.
Yeah, you were
Like,
ready.
I was ready. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. The moment I got the car that I had, it was, I was on a one-way track to hell,
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what it was until I got to the program, but, it's called a soul tie.
Yeah.
And so that car was a soul tie for me. And so it was like relieving and cutting that tie was vital in my recovery,
Yeah.
And so I had to have something invested, And so when I get to New Beginnings, I pull up. It's 2 days before Christmas, and I pull up on the property, and it's a beautiful property. And it's like my soul is just like
Yeah.
I can breathe. Like I know that something is good, like it's going to change my whole life, right? And I didn't know it at the time, but it was the presence of God that was sitting there,
Yeah.
And so we're going to these church services, and I walk into the church that's on property, and it says, "We welcome anyone who has a sincere desire to change." And it's the picture of Jesus and a woman at the well. And I just started sobbing because it was like I knew that I was done. I knew that my life was about to change, and I was sick and tired of all the hurt, the pain, the shame, everything that I've gone through. And so Sunday came and they're like, "Come on, we're getting ready to go to church." And I'm like, "Okay, where's church?" They're like, "Free Chapel." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what?" And they're like, "Yeah, we go to Free Chapel on Sundays and Wednesdays." And I was like, that was God. He knew that a desire in my heart was to go to Free Chapel, to be, right there. And it was like he answered it through the program that he chose for me. Like all the programs I wrote, I could have went anywhere, but he specifically chose that one, And so Cindy and Barbara just, they rallied around me. They always sat with me at church. And, it just really, this beautiful relationship formed,
Yeah.
And she kind of became like my spiritual mom,
Yeah.
She was there for the birth of my kids. She was there at my wedding. She was, and she's very involved in the program today. And so it was just like God orchestrated that,
Yes.
Only something he could have orchestrated.
So beautiful.
And, even at the program, when I was in the program, they would come and visit me. Cindy and her husband, Lee, would come and visit me. And so bring me food, send me pictures every week, just like
those moments are so special and powerful.
Yes.
Like those little acts of like checking it up on someone, and the discipleship, just like you needed that so bad in your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like God was strategically placing people in my path, to love me, to show me what godly parents look like. Nothing against my parents. Like they're great now, Like we had to go through some hills and valleys, but it's like Cindy and Lee just became a vital role, even as far as when me and my husband met and started dating. We wouldn't go on dates without them there. Like me and Brent, we had committed to staying celibate, right? So
this is your current husband.
my current husband.
Yeah.
My only husband.
Yes.
My forever husband.
Yes.
So we had committed to celibacy.
Yeah.
You know, and living our previous lifestyles, you know, we had already done things like that in the past. But when we met, we decided that we were going to wait to have sex till marriage, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, Cindy and Lee were kind of like our accountability partners with
Wow.
that. And, you know, it was hard, you know?
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time together. And, you know, I had Connor, who was 2 or 3 at the time. And so he came into Connor's life, right?
Where did you meet Brent?
So we knew each other in our former life, you know, but we got reintroduced through Facebook.
Okay.
So I went out to eat with one of my friends, and he hit her up and was like, "Who's that girl you're with?" You know? And she was like, "That's Rain," you know? And Rain was my middle name. Well, is my middle name, but that's what I went by on the streets. And he was like, "No way, dude," you know? And so it was like, we just kind of reconnected. He went through his program. I went through New Beginnings.
So he had been through addiction as well.
Yeah. So we lived a rough life, you know, both of us. And so when he graduated, he was with someone else. And then when I graduated, I was, you know, I was trying to stay away from the bad guys, but like they were seeking me out on Facebook, you know? So it was like I started falling into that same pattern, talking to guys in jail. And like one of them was fixing to get out, and I was just like, "Lord, I know you have more for me than this.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to go back down this same path." And so one of them had gotten out, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I can't talk to you anymore. And so Brent enters the picture.
Yeah.
Right. And so anytime like a guy would message me or something, I would just be like, "I'm with someone," you know, just to like keep them at bay, you know. And so eventually me and Brent went on our first date. It was during the fast. So it was the 21-day fast that Free Chapel does. And we went to Cracker Barrel and ate vegetables. And this girl helped me get dressed for my date. I was like, you know, I had just graduated New Beginnings, was not a girly girl.
How long were you at New Beginnings, like your program?
I was there 11 months.
Okay.
At the time, it was an 10-month program.
Yeah.
I stayed 11 months. But
So she was helping you get ready?
yeah, like I was not a girly girl.
Yeah.
If you look back at pictures of me in Free Chapel, like I was wearing baggy pants. I was wearing hoodies because I was so insecure, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just trying to hide my body,
Yeah.
you know, because we call it Granny's Fat Farm, right? Because you trade drugs for food. And so like I ate a lot there, right? Not used to having the sober weight.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated, eventually I got my own apartment. My dad was like, "Here, go get your own apartment." Because I tried to live back at home with my parents, and it wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I kind of struggled, you know. My mom would provide food sometimes, you know, like she felt bad. And it was like I was trying to survive on one income, paying rent, paying childcare, car, all that, right? And so there was a lot of nights that I didn't eat. Like I made sure Connor would eat, and I just didn't, you know? So like I started losing that granny weight, the fat farm weight. And so it was like I finally had gotten like comfortable, you know? And I told this girl at work, I was like, "I don't know how to dress, but I know I'm going on a date with this guy that I'm going to marry.
Yeah.
So I need you to help me get dressed," right? And so she took me shopping. We had I got ready. And then when I seen him in person, it was like the lights.
Yeah.
He was glittering, you know? I was like, I'm going to marry him.
And he was a believer, like,
And he
at
was a
this
believer.
time. Yeah.
So when I was at New Beginnings, Granny had us write down on a piece of paper what we wanted in our husbands. I wanted a godly man, a family-oriented man, a man after God's own heart,
Yeah.
a reformed thug. That was my number one, reformed thug. I needed somebody to put me in my place.
Yeah.
You know, like that iron sharpens iron, you know, because I'll run slap over somebody, you know.
Yeah.
So I needed that strong, authoritative male role in my life. And I said I wanted someone that worked hard like my dad, like all these things, because my dad was a very consistent worker when I was growing up. And so it was like Brent to a T.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And so when we first started talking, he was like, he told me where he worked. He worked in a steel fab shop, just like my dad.
Wow.
You know, my dad worked in a steel fab shop. And then he was like, yeah, I'm going to class tonight. And it was a Monday night. And I was like, are you going to SOD? And he was like, yeah, how did you know that? I was like, I'm in SOD, you know? So he was going to Free Chapel, Gwinnett.
So what's SOD for those who don't know?
So School of Discipleship.
So he was like actively in, wanting to be at church, not just like having to be, but wanting to be there.
Yeah. And so he was in SOD at Gwinnett and I was in SOD at Gainesville, right? And so it was just like, it felt like all the puzzle pieces were lining up. And so we go on our first date and, you know, we're talking about how we want to stay celibate and stuff like that. Well, probably like our second date, he took me and Connor out for dinner. And it was his first time meeting Connor. And the waiter at the restaurant was like, oh, you look just like your dad.
Wow.
And I was so mortified. I was like, oh my God, like this is mortifying, you know, like all I could do was like, yeah, you know, and he's like, yeah, thanks, you know. And so it was just like from that moment on, like we became like a 3-chord strand, you know, and it was like Brent embraced Connor, like Connor never met Mike. So like I never allowed Brent or Mike to meet Connor because it just was toxic. Yeah. Wasn't a healthy relationship. And so like even with like the abuse that I had to endure with Mike, it was like I could never allow Connor. If you're going to beat me while I'm pregnant, there's no telling, you know. And so it was like I didn't want to have an inconsistent parent in his life either. Like I knew he was never going to get clean. And so he never did. He never got clean. He went to prison for trafficking like 2 different times. And so it was like Brent just assumed that role. Yeah. You know? And so we had our church does this forward conference for teens every year. And so me and him are serving together. He goes with Lee. He goes with Lee to go buy my wedding ring. Wow. Buys it at Forward, proposes to me a few months later. And then, you know, we get married. Yeah. Get pregnant on the honeymoon. Yeah. With our first daughter, Shiloh. And she's born during the fast. Wow. The day that we're praying for peace, you know, we already had the name Shiloh picked out. Yeah. And like this year, he had given us a word for each day of the fast. And this one was peace. So Shiloh is a place of peace in the Bible. Yeah. And so it was just like God orchestrated all of that.
That's so beautiful. And I want to kind of like round back to you and like your current life with your children and your husband too. But I kind of want to go back and ask you, you had cried out and said like, God, if you're real. And then all of a sudden these, you know, specific things quickly happen. And you said you were at this program 11 months. So, and going to church. And so I just wanted to see how, you can express how you fell in love with God and became to really know he was real. Like what happened to where you realized like, this is more than addiction. There's like, I've got to let him heal me. Like, could you just take us through a little bit of what that looked like?
Yeah. So honestly, like New Beginnings had 13 church services every morning, every night, right? Except like 2 nights out of the week. And so it was being on my face at the altar, you know, just sitting there. And I'm sure like the visual, I'm like an artist, you know, I love like paintings and stuff like that, but literally looking at the picture of Jesus. Yeah. And the woman at the well.
And then of course you read the story about that.
And then reading it, you know, but it was like in those moments of prayer and in the revival services that, God truly began to break things off of me. Like, I had so much bitterness and unforgiveness, not only towards my parents, but towards my abuser, people in my life. And it was like, it was poison to my soul.
Yeah.
Like, holding on to all the bitterness and the resentment. Like, my entire life, when I was on the streets, I thought the meaner I was, the more I could repel people.
And like protect yourself.
And protect myself. Because looking at it from my view, right? I'm 15 on the streets. And I'm hanging out with 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, however old, right? I felt like the meaner I was, they wouldn't want to get in my pants.
Yeah.
They would leave me alone in that aspect. And so it worked for the most part, But it was like I had this fortress of rage.
Yeah.
Like, each step I would take was like a ball of fire. Lighting fires everywhere. It was like you could feel the rage radiating off of me. And it was it was also during a fast that we did with New Beginnings. Like, we had a revival coming up, and I think it was on Palm Sunday or something. And they had spikenard candles lit in the church. Like, I can remember the atmosphere. There's candles lit everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's this small church, and I'm just walking in, and I feel my skin is crawling.
Wow.
Like, it literally feels like there's something ripping out of my skin. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm on the front row, and I'm just start rocking back and forth, and I'm getting so angry. Like, no one's even saying anything yet. And I'm just getting so angry, and I'm like, my teeth start gritting, and like, I didn't know what deliverance was at this point. I'd never experienced it. And like, all I know is next I'm on the floor, right?
Wow.
Don't know what happened after that. And then I wake up and I'm like throwing up, right? And like dry heaving. And so it was like, but all I knew after I came to, like, I was light.
Wow.
Like, I felt a freedom that I had never felt before. Like, I didn't feel angry anymore. It was like the self-hate had broken off of me. And it was still a, like, gradual process, right?
Yeah.
Still having to forgive. Like, it was like I felt forgiveness, and that was a journey in itself, was forgiving, my abusers, forgiving for the child abuse. And it was like, Lisa G had told me, she said, honey, forgiveness is not for them. It is for you. Yeah. And you have got to forgive them, baby, because it is eating you alive.
Yes.
And it was like, okay.
Because some people truly ask, like, how do I possibly forgive? And they really believe you have to, like, feel it. And, like, but it's really a choice of your will is what I,
Well,
like.
that, and, people also wear it as, like, a false badge. Yeah. Like, I used to wear my trauma as the badge of honor. Like, oh, look at me. Pity me. I went through this. I went through that. And I would use it as an excuse to treat everyone in my life like crap. And I allowed it to give me a justification of why I could use and why it was okay that I was using or doing this or doing that or hurting this person. But it was like, even I was telling the girls about this yesterday, like at the program. I have lost so many people in my life, whether it's to murder, suicide, drug overdoses, stuff like that. I had a specific place for each person on a shelf, like a trophy shelf, right? And so anytime that person's death date or whatever was coming around, here I am making the Facebook post. Rest in peace, Brandon. Rest in peace, this person. We had great times or whatever, but it was like a false badge, like that identity that I was continuing to wear. Yeah. And it was like God really had to be like, you don't have to be seen. Yeah. Like, it's okay to just let those things lie, and he was like, let the dead bury the dead. Wow. And so it was like, anytime someone died, God would remind me of that scripture. Let the dead bury the dead. Yeah. Whether it's the spiritually dead or whether it was people in my life that were dying that I used to hang out with in addiction. It was like I had to let them go, is
Yeah.
what the Lord was
It's like
revealing.
he taught you to give them to him
Yeah.
instead of carrying them, and then the enemy using that trauma
Yeah.
as a doorway to go to things to
Yeah.
that wasn't God, to
Yeah.
just to fulfill those. It's almost like you get a little addicted to the sadness of it, like if it's,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. That victim mentality.
Yeah.
That victim role, it was an addiction in itself, like
Yeah.
kind of like my addiction or my trauma is worse than your trauma,
Yeah.
but like it took years of God like directing my steps and working me through these things. Like now I look at trauma, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Like say your parents got divorced and I was molested. Like every person responds to trauma differently,
Yeah.
So it's like just because mine was this doesn't mean make yours any less
Right.
than what I just experienced. It's like, and trying to get people to see that, it doesn't matter what you've gone through. Like it depends on the perspective and the trauma lenses we look at things through,
Yes.
like what trauma lens are you looking at your parents' divorce through? Like there's so many things that come along with that, like loneliness, rejection, abandonment, the same
Right.
things that unprotected, maybe something happens after that and they feel unprotected
And unsafe.
Unstable because they're having to move or go house to house, it's like all those same like traits or roots can happen if you're molested, you feel unsafe, rejected, abandoned.
So true.
And so it's like, when I finally got to a place where I stopped comparing my trauma to everyone else's, it was like God just began to wreck me.
Wow.
Like I had a tattoo right here. I tattooed it on my arm when I was 15. It said, "You won't break me." And so I lived by that code. You will not break me. I had been so broken by the world. I was like, no one will ever break me again, right? And then I have one right here that says, "No love." God already told me I need to cover this one up. So this will be the next tattoo that gets covered up. But no love. I dealt with the orphan spirit my entire life.
Right.
But what I didn't know when I was putting "you won't break me" or "no love" on me was I was essentially tattooing inner vows on myself.
Right.
Those things that were like, no one will ever love me. I'll never be lovable, And
yes,
so it's
these
like
word spoken
the
over
word
yourself.
curses,
Yes.
the power of life and death is in the tongue.
Yeah. Come on.
And like when I had "You won't break me" tattooed on my arm, God broke me all the way down, and he had to. But like even I have rain tattooed right here. So it's like all these old inner like identities that I had, the Lord, even still today, this was back in 2014 and I'm in a program, but now he's still revealing things to me, like
still healing,
like, okay, it's time. He told me this one like 2 years ago. I haven't got it covered up yet, but I'm planning on it. The no love thing, like my whole life I dealt with the orphan spirit.
Yeah.
Feeling alone in a room, feeling like I can't connect to people, feeling like I'd have no purpose, know. But it all dealt with the orphan spirit, And so it's like when God gets a hold of you, and in those still moments when I was sitting there seeking, when I was fasting, not really knowing how to fast, right? But it was like I stayed in the Word because the Word was the only thing that would renew my mind, that would truly transform me, And in my program, everyone hated me.
Wow.
So like I dealt with the orphan spirit even in my program. I felt all alone. I watched everyone else click up with all these other girls, but like I felt so alone.
Yeah.
But what I took as punishment, God was really separating me. Like I truly believe if he didn't separate me in my program, I was the one, like even when I graduated, they were like, "You'll never make it out there. Like you're going to go to hell and this and that." And it was staff telling me that,
Oh, I'm so
and it
sorry
was
to
like,
hear that.
I'm going to show them,
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me that. Like I am going to succeed, And it was like,
Amen.
looking back on pictures from our old program. Like I looked when went there to serve once. We literally had 10 people that died, whether it was murder, whether it was overdoses, or died of natural causes. Like 10 people in my program that died.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, or everyone else was relapsed, you know? So it was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, the statistics weren't in my favors, but it was like, I was truly sold out to the Lord.
You truly you surrendered.
I surrendered. Like I knew in that holding cell, I was done when I was done.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to go back, you know, like getting reacclimated with my son. Yeah. Like the first time I saw him at the program, he was terrified of me.
Wow.
Didn't really remember who I was, but he was scared. Like he ran and cried away from me. So it was like, that was like a stab in my heart, you know? And then I couldn't bring him to the program till 8 months in. And it was just, but those 8 months that I didn't have him, the way I was able to seek and press in and just solely like fixate on the Lord.
And give him your pain and
give him all that, you know? Yeah. And he took my ashes and gave me beauty for it, you know? And I had always told God that I'll never live in Hall County. I will never come back
You
here.
wanted away from the place
I wanted
that
away.
You were like running around in, is what you're saying.
Yes. So all of Gainesville is where I was with Mike at. And so it's like, or other people, you know, it was like my stomping grounds.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I will never step foot in Hall County again. We live here. We go to church here.
Yeah.
We have a program here. Like everything we do is in Hall County. And so it's like over the years, God has truly, every situation that I've been in, whether it was getting trapped at someone's house, you know, going to a Bible study that's at a place right across the street from it. You know, it's like God took that pain and gave me something beautiful out of it. Yeah. Like it's all God-centered. Like the way I've watched him strategically do things, like even so much so the same neighborhood, and this was recent, that me and Mike used to live in. You know, we have the Made for More Ministries, the program. He strategically, right, there's a girl that came into the program who needed a social security card from her parents' house. Her parents' house was in the exact neighborhood me and Mike lived in.
Wow.
So it's like all the darkness and everything that I had to endure there.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting to bring someone to go get her social security card so she can get a job.
So it's like you get out of the program and you love Free Chapel Church, but you're like, your plan is like, I'm getting far away from that area I knew, but you're saying like he took you in that area, and it's like you had to face that, and like instead of running or being triggered and just not dealing with it, like you faced it, and like that strength that you carry was able to be, you know, just blessed by God to deal with it. And now you talk about how you have a program, and I would love for you to share just a bit about that, and even have you and your husband come on and do a whole episode about what you guys are doing. So you said you have a program called Made for More now, because taking this, what you walked through, and your passion for recovery and helping, basically, like I say a lot is rescue missions, and that's what you're in the kingdom business of, like, who can I give a place to have an opportunity to have their life changed. You know, some of course will come in and it will be seeds planted, but some, you know, it will be a harvest. And so how did you go from just letting God change your life, get married, start having children, to what you're doing now? Yeah.
So everything that we've done in our life has always come through a fast.
Really?
Right. And so once I graduated my program, I knew I always wanted to have a recovery program. Like me and Brent would talk about it, and he's like, yeah, okay. You know, he's like, that's not what I want to do, you know? Yeah. But like I had a name picked out and everything, right?
Wow.
For years.
That's powerful.
Because I just wanted to help people, right?
Yeah.
Because I knew the hell and the depth of trauma, you know, and not all of it's been able to been said on this podcast, but so many things that I had walked through that God healed me from, right? And there's so many people that are living in the remnants of their trauma every single day. And so I just knew that I wanted to help people through their trauma, because there is life outside of your trauma. When your life seems like it's a dark hole, like there's always light. But sometimes it takes someone throwing you a life raft to realize, hey, there's a way out,
Yeah.
And so it's like Brent didn't want a program, but, we started working in recovery. I started working at Free Chapel, and I was over the recovery ministry and stuff like that. And so for 7-8 years, we just consistently taught Celebrate Freedom. And God put me in a place where I had to work on my trauma, and I had to help other people through their trauma, like divorce care for kids, Re-engage, which is a marriage class, anything that dealt with restoration is the people group that I was helping at the time. And so, Brent, of course, I wrote Brent into teaching the recovery class with me, and so we met some really amazing people, like some of our best friends that have gone season to season with us, right? Mm-hmm. And so, one day we were sitting at the information desk, and it was me, Brent, and our friend Trey, and we wrote down the vision for a program, right? Not knowing 2 years later, we would have a program.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like God just orchestrated all of it. And so currently we have 40 beds for men and we have 30 for women. And
so awesome.
We've been open maybe a year now, but it just, it's exploded.
Yeah.
And God just...
The need is so great.
The need is so great. And it's like, it's very disheartening. Like when you start working in the recovery field, you see how many programs look at it as a money racket and how a lot of programs are losing their way, and it's like just having a true faith-based program. Like it's not the AA groups, it's not the NA, it's not the recovery groups that are going to keep people sober. It's Jesus.
Yes.
And so if we're not leading people to Jesus, then they're operating in a form of godliness but have no power, like they know of God, but like a lot of these programs that are claiming to be like a faith-based program, like they're letting men and women live together, and it's like the two can't coexist. It's like you're either obeying the word fully, you can't pick and choose what applies to you out of the Bible. And that's what we try to teach these people in the program is like, you either obey all of it or none of it,
Yeah.
And yes, it's like a gradual progression, but like the word is living and active.
And you're like, and I know the fruit of it, and it's
I
good.
know the fruit of it,
Yes.
It's like, and we've just really dedicated to the Lord. Like, yes, now what is the question? Like, it doesn't matter what you want us to do, Lord. You have our yes. Now, what do you want us to do? You know? And we have just lived our lives like that over the course of, I don't know, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
We dedicated
I know it's been
that.
like a literal like blind faith walk for you guys.
Oh,
Like,
man.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
And you just said yes.
Yeah.
It's not like you were completely fearless and knew what you were doing. And that's, I encourage everyone listening. Like, he's not always just gonna take us to places where we know exactly what we're doing. And you just have to go, if he's calling me, he's going to take care of it all. I got to meet you during the time of your life where that vision came alive.
Yeah.
And that's when I met you, because I heard someone say, I just met this couple that just said yes and like dropped their jobs to do this by radical faith. And then we met and I was just like, this is amazing. Like, just, obviously my testimony of like, coming out of addiction and mental illness and trauma. It's like my passion is let him heal you. I promise it's good, and you just have such a heart.
We don't want to bash you with the Bible, but here.
Yeah. Yes. So it's been an honor for me to see that, and see the fruit of your ministry. And, how many kids do you have now too, by the way, to jump back into that?
Oh, we have 3.
Yeah, you have 3 kids now. And how long have you and your husband been married at this point?
We've been married since 2018.
Okay, awesome. Wow.
We've been together 9 years, but
yeah.
so we're coming up on a decade.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Crazy.
Wow, your story is so powerful. I just
Thank
see how like he truly does take everything the enemy meant for evil and use it for good.
Yeah.
And you're just a walking testimony, and you just are shining the light of God in your eyes, and just the joy you carry and the humility you carry to always, like you said earlier, like he's still healing me. And it's like, most of us who find God, if we are painted a picture that it's this religious structure and you have to have it all together, it's like it didn't take a couple years for us to get in these places. It's going to take a while. And just giving him all of our mess, and he will use it for a message. And so I just what kind of like what you would call weakness from the past do you now see as strength? Like,
Honestly, mine would probably be that orphan spirit.
yeah.
Because the entire time I looked at it like it was a punishment, God was truly separating me.
Yeah.
So if you're in a season where you feel like I don't have any friends, or I don't fit in, I don't belong, it's because you're not meant to belong.
Yeah.
You're not meant to fit in. You're born to stand out and be set apart,
Yeah.
And it was like I could either involve myself with all the clickiness and get distracted, or it was like I could either seek God.
Yes.
And in that season, in all of our seasons, God truly wants us to seek him.
Yes.
So when I was looking at it, like, I feel alone, but God is walking alongside of us.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I'm to the point where I don't care if I'm alone.
Right.
I don't care about other people's opinions.
Right.
Like, I'm sure people, they'll make negative comments and stuff like that. So what I saw as weakness, as the orphan spirit being alone, has really turned into my greatest asset, because I don't need affirmation from people.
Yeah.
My husband, maybe sometimes,
Yeah.
like there's still some flesh in there, but it's like, I don't have to have everyone that likes me around me. Like, I'm okay being set apart. I'm okay being alone. And, I see my kids sometimes falling in that same pattern when my kids feel like they're being bullied or they don't have any friends. And I'm like, you are meant to be set apart.
Yeah.
You're not meant to fit in. You are born to be set apart, you know? And it's like, when people can truly grasp that, I think the whole world will open up for them, because if you are a leader and you're so concerned with being caught up in all this over here, all the drama, all the affirmations from other people, it's like you're really not growing.
Yeah.
You're being contained to this environment, you know? And I always think about like the parable of the crab in the bucket, right? There's that one that's trying to lead and get out of the bucket, right? But then you have all these chaotic people around you, that are in the crab parable. The crabs will pull that crab back down. And so it's like, you have to be very intentional about the people that you have around you, you know?
True.
And so as to where I used to allow anybody in my life, now I'm very guarded with who I allow any time or access into my life, into my inner circle.
Right.
Like I have the broken around me all the time. Like, I love pouring into them. I love speaking to them. I love helping them. But you have to be so intentional with who's in your circle,
Yeah.
Who are your friends? Who is it that you allow to pour into your life?
Yeah.
Because who you allow to pour into your life and speak life is huge, you know, because a lot of people, they have good intentions, but speak death
it's very
over
true.
you all the time, you know? So it's like, you have to make sure you're listening to the right voices.
That's so good.
And so I feel like, that orphan spirit or being just learning how to navigate from going from the orphan spirit to being set apart has been.
That's a lot. Like, it reminds me of what I feel like I went through, because when I got saved, I was used to crazy a level of like constantly being around people.
Yeah.
And I had never truly been alone. And when I was alone, I was like tormented. So when I met God, I got everything ripped away, including people.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like so hard, and I would weep for years. It felt like not only did I grieve my own death, because I like had died to self, but I grieved these like friends that I had these crazy soul ties and like the community I was used to.
Yeah.
And as you're sharing, it reminds me of how the Lord told me, true peace is when you find true joy in me only. And it's like this, God loves for us to be in community and fellowship, and he brings these certain people that are close to your heart, and they do pour into you this pure love of like their heart is for God. But what you're saying is like, he doesn't want it to make it to where we have, it's really idolatry. Like, if I don't have people who accept me, if I don't have friends who love me, I don't feel okay. He doesn't want you to feel that. He wants you to be like, even if I had nothing, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because that's where your full soul is just in him alone. And he is filling your cup, so that it's like the message of pouring out to you so you can pour out to others. He's filling your cup alone so that you truly can just pour out to others. You don't need that friend to fulfill you. You don't need your husband to fulfill you. He's just a blessing, and he is your partner, and he's like one soul with you. But he's not like, if he's might be having a hard day or something, you're not just like totally undone and like, oh no, are they mad at me? Like, that's what that orphan spirit makes you feel like. You know what I mean? It makes you feel like, oh no, it keeps you on survival mode, and like, I really got to make sure I just like you said, you have to guard your heart. That's very different than like that I'm putting a wall up and like I have to do everything on my own. That's what that orphan spirit tells you. So that's like extremely powerful. So I pray that even as people listen to this, if they're dealing with that, it'll really like highlight to them, and they'll be like, wow, I think I'm dealing with that, and I want to renounce that. I don't want anything to do with that orphan spirit. Like, I give you that part of my heart, God, So, but this has been awesome, Marina. I feel like we're kind of wrapping it up, and like I said, I would love even just to get you and Brent's testimony on here, and you guys sharing just more of what God's done in your life. But is there anything else you want to share right now? Anything else coming to mind? But I think we covered a lot.
I'll say this. The last thing, you can't pour new wine into old wineskins.
Come on.
And so when and if, you're growing in your faith or in recovery or whatever that is, it's vital that we separate ourselves from those same people, places, things, and ideas, because it's like, if you're trying to grow and transform, being around those same negative people or people that are still doing all those bad things, like if you lay with a dog that has fleas, you're eventually going to get fleas, and so, the word tells us that you can't pour new wine into old wineskins. So it's like, you have to change your entire environment. If you're stuck in like the stinking thinking patterns, like, start changing that. I am a child of God. I am loved. I am redeemed. Start speaking life over those situations in your life, but that just came up to mind whenever you were.
I had something come up while you were sharing a question. If you were to look back at your young self going through all that, knowing God now, what can you say to her about how like loved she is? What would you say to that lost girl?
For me, I always thought I was alone, and I never understood why I had to endure so much trauma growing up. And I just, I thought I was dealt that bad hand, but it's like, it's so cliche when people say God gives the toughest battles to people that are like his strongest warriors or whatever, and like, I never understood that, but he was there the whole time.
Yeah.
So I just imagine him now saying, you're not alone. I love you. I'm here. I'm holding you, like, we'll get through this. It doesn't matter how dark it seems. There's always a brighter tomorrow, and we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies, right?
Amen.
And so if we're not speaking out and sharing what God's brought us through, the enemy is still getting glory out of our life, because the enemy wants us isolated. He doesn't want us talking about these things.
Shameful.
He wants us hiding in that shame, that guilt, the pain. But God wants us to be a life raft to someone else. You can either be a fountain or you can be a drain. And so you have to pick what you want to be.
Come on.
You know?
Yes.
And punch the devil in the face and speak about those
Yes.
things. You can't stay hidden anymore, you know?
Come on.
That's how it begins to lose its power over you, is by talking about things. And if you feel
Yes.
like you don't have someone to talk about it, go to a counselor. Go somewhere. Find someone you can confide in, because it'll begin to break those chains off of your life that keep you bound.
Wow. Come on. Well, I just feel like you just mic drop that, you know? Yeah. Honestly, I really feel led for you. I just feel like there's some people watching that are like, they're like saying, break my chains. Like, okay, break my chains, Lord. I don't want to be bound anymore in addiction. I don't want to be bound with carrying my trauma and being so held back by like shame and guilt that I don't talk about it anymore. I want to just, it's like giving just God permission. And so I just feel like led that you're supposed to pray for some people.
Okay.
If we just close it out that way, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Father God, we just thank you for who you are, God. We just thank you that you see us in our pain, that even when we're going through trials and tribulations, God, that you have always been there, God, that you're always holding our hand, but we have to choose you, God. I just thank you that you don't give up on us, even when the nights get dark, that you're still there, Lord. So I pray for those that are wounded tonight, God. I just pray that you touch them in a mighty way. I pray those that can't see tomorrow, God, that you just give them a glimmer of light. I pray that what the enemy meant for evil, that you'll turn around for good, Lord. I pray that you break the chains off of those that are held in captivity, God. I pray that you break the chains of cancer, any spirit of infirmity, any chains of addiction off of these people's lives, pornography, God. We just pray that you set the captives free, Lord, just like you've set us all free, Lord. We know that your power is greater than anything that Satan could do, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
And so we just thank you for who you are. We thank you that you are healing, that you are restoring, that you are bringing beauty from the ashes, Lord. And we just love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, we're going to do some fun questions
Okay.
real quick. All right, what do you think Jesus' favorite food is?
Oh, pomegranates.
Oh, those are glorious.
They are.
They're so pretty. Oh my gosh, yes, great answer. Okay, I love this question. I've asked it like to everyone, but when you're in heaven and there's this amazing movie theater and you're like, what can I watch first about something that happened in the Bible? What would you want to watch first?
Ooh, David and Goliath.
Epic.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay, another one is, what do you see in creation that immediately makes you think about God?
Butterflies.
Butterflies. Oh, I love that. I love butterflies so much.
Or the ocean.
The ocean.
The ocean.
It's so big. It's like endless.
It's endless.
And it's like beautiful, but also like
Yes. Scary.
scary.
Yeah.
Great.
Honestly,
answer.
that's like my favorite scripture in the Bible. I don't even know why, when it literally talks about God forming the ocean and the heavens and the sky and the borders. I don't know.
That's your favorite.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
A Wagoneer.
A Wagoneer.
A
Oh man,
Wagoneer.
I can see Jesus driving down the road, listening to some great worship music.
Yep.
Awesome. Let me ask one personal one. What's one of your favorite places that you've ever been?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I would say the ocean.
The ocean.
Anywhere on the ocean.
Yeah.
It's like it takes my ADHD brain and it just quiets it.
Yeah.
You know?
Just the beach.
It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just something about being at the ocean. I feel more connected than anywhere else. I guess because like all the distractions are gone,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But
It's beautiful.
actually, if I had to pick a place in the world, probably Nicaragua.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Multiple times.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Let's do one more. What is one of your favorite places to go out to eat?
Texas Roadhouse.
Yum. I have a coupon downstairs. I'll give you. All right. Thank you guys. Bye.